Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into the most fascinating and revolutionary ideas, extracting the core insights you need to truly be well-informed.
Hello.
Today, we're tackling something huge. We're challenging one of the most fundamental, maybe even grim, assumptions about our universe. What if entropy, the thing we always see as the ultimate inescapable force of decay and disorder, what if it isn't actually what we thought at all?
Right. What if it's something, well, far more intriguing,
Yeah.
maybe even reversible, holding a kind of hidden potential we've just completely overlooked?
Exactly. That's the territory we're exploring today.
Indeed. We're about to embark on quite an intellectual adventure through Philip Lilien's groundbreaking unified coherence theory, or UCT.
UCT, got it.
And this isn't just, another abstract physics theory. It's a monumental framework, both philosophical and scientific.
Okay.
It's all meticulously detailed in his extensive work, Coherence, Entropy, and the Architecture of Dissolution.
Right, that's our source material for this dive.
Precisely. And this deep dive will aim to unravel Lilien's revolutionary redefinition of entropy and explore its profound implications. And these implications stretch across, well, practically everything.
Like what specifically?
From the very fabric of physics, the intricate dance of biological systems, the mysteries of consciousness, even the grand narrative of cosmology itself. It touches all of it.
Wow. Okay, so our mission today is to give you, our listeners, a definitive shortcut to understanding this incredibly complex yet utterly captivating framework.
It is complex, but the core ideas are surprisingly intuitive once you grasp them.
Hopefully. You'll discover surprising insights that might just fundamentally change how you perceive everything around you, from the smallest subatomic particle to the largest galaxies, and maybe even your own daily experiences of order and disorder.
That's the goal.
We'll meticulously extract the core nuggets of knowledge, ensuring you grasp not just what Lilien is proposing, but critically why it matters and how it really challenges centuries of scientific thought. Let's really unpack this.
Absolutely. Let's start with the standard picture, the one most of us learned. For centuries, classical thermodynamics has painted a rather stark picture.
Depressing even, you could say.
Dare I say, somewhat depressing, yes.
Yeah.
It's been understood as this ultimate downhill slide, a relentless march towards an inevitable heat death for the universe.
The end state where everything is uniform and lifeless.
Exactly. In this traditional view, entropy is seen as a direct measure of disorder, of chaos, an irreversible degradation where complex, organized systems inevitably dissolve into these uniform, featureless states.
Like the classic example of dropping a glass.
Precisely. A dropped glass, shattering, scattering its ordered form into a million chaotic shards.
Yeah.
Or think of a perfectly organized desk that, slowly descends into disarray over time, never quite returning to its original state on its own.
It takes effort to put it back.
It takes effort, exactly. The second law of thermodynamics, famously captured by the equation, delta S.
Delta S greater than or equal to 0.
Right. It formalized this idea, suggesting that entropy always increases, or at best stays the same in an isolated system. It's long been seen as this terminal destructive force, the universe's ultimate destructor in a sense.
That's the classic, rather grim view, isn't it? It implies a universe just winding down, destined for a cold, uniform, and ultimately lifeless state where nothing new or complex can ever emerge again. It's a bit of a cosmic dead end.
It really is, a one-way street to nothingness, essentially.
But Lilien's UCT seems to completely flip this script. It offers a surprisingly optimistic, or at least cyclical, alternative. So what exactly is his core thesis here? How does he manage to redefine something as seemingly fundamental and universally accepted as entropy?
That's precisely where the paradigm shift lies. It's profound. Lilien offers a truly groundbreaking reinterpretation. He posits that entropy, long seen as the shadow of order, is here reinterpreted not as the antithesis of structure, but as its residual field, its broken phase, its echo.
An echo. Wow, so not the opposite of structure, but what's left behind.
Exactly. This isn't just a clever turn of phrase. It's a monumental conceptual leap. He's saying that entropy isn't the inherent enemy of order, actively destroying it.
Right.
Instead, it's what is left behind, the trace, the byproduct, the remnant of the coherent pattern that dissipated or decohered. It's a profound shift from viewing it as a destructive force to understanding it as a structural consequence.
So it's not the active destroyer, but the trace or imprint of what was once destroyed. That's a really powerful image, almost like a forensic clue.
Very much like a clue.
Does that mean it inherently holds the potential to be reformed, unlike the classical view where it's just gone forever?
Precisely. That's the critical difference and the source of that potential optimism, or at least cyclicality. Lilien vividly describes it as the residue of coherence reduction, or the unlinked remnant of phase-unified systems, and even a geometry of fragmentation.
A geometry of fragmentation, so it has shape, even in its broken state.
It has a kind of shape, yes, a topological signature. This isn't just semantics or poetic language. It's a fundamental change in how we conceive of entropy, transforming it from a terminal end to a structural consequence of phase transition.
Okay.
And this is the truly hopeful part. He emphasizes that it's disconnected resonance awaiting reactivation.
Awaiting reactivation.
Yes. The potential for reversal, for reintegration, for a return to coherence is inherent in its very nature as a residue, not as a final state. It's like a broken circuit board. The components are still there, just not connected correctly. They're waiting for repair.
That immediately gives us a glimmer of possibility, doesn't it? A universe that isn't just winding down, but perhaps can be wound back up, at least in principle?
In principle, yes. It opens the door.
And Lilien isn't just speaking in abstract terms. He formalizes this revolutionary idea with an equation, which is pretty exciting for those of us who appreciate a mathematical backbone. Yeah. He calls it the universal equation of dissolution, S = RC. Can you break that down for us? What does each component signify?
Certainly. This equation is really central to UCT. As you might expect, S stands for entropy, much as we're familiar with from classical thermodynamics.
Okay, standard S.
Standard S. But a C, however, represents the crucial shift. It denotes the reduction in coherence, that underlying phase-aligned order, the structured resonance that binds a system together. It's the loss of coherence.
So delta C is coherence change, specifically a reduction.
A reduction, yes. And then R is the truly novel element, the residue operator. This isn't just a placeholder. It's a specific mathematical function that describes how entropy emerges from lost coherence.
Right, the R operator. What exactly does this residue operator R do? How does it differentiate between coherence and its residue? How does it extract it?
Well, the R operator is essentially a sophisticated nonlinear filter or maybe a projection. When a system undergoes decoherence, when its coherence diminishes or breaks down, the R operator extracts the phase-disconnected portion of that coherence. So imagine a complex integrated system. As it loses its internal alignment, R identifies and quantifies the part that has become disorganized, that has lost its phase relationship, and manifests it as entropy.
So it isolates the broken part?
It isolates the broken part, yes. It's like a process that leaves behind phase-randomized energy and structural disintegration. It's not just making things random, it's identifying the form or topology of that randomness as a measurable residual field. It's not the destruction itself, but the signature of the destruction.
So if we think of coherence as a perfectly orchestrated symphony where every instrument is in tune and playing its part harmoniously, then entropy, through the R operator, is the static, the discordant noise, or maybe the jumbled individual notes that result when the instruments fall out of tune or the musicians start playing randomly. The sound isn't gone, but the melody is.
A perfect analogy, truly. Yeah. That captures it very well. To offer another perspective, Lilien suggests thinking of entropy as the ash of a burnt resonance, not nothing, but a fragmented trace of former structure. When something burns, the ash isn't the original object, obviously, but it's a tangible remnant, a residue, that carries information about what was.
You can sometimes tell what burned from the ash.
Sometimes, yes. Or, if we look at it through the lens of information theory, if coherence is integrated, readable information, like a perfectly formatted and accessible hard drive, then entropy is dispersed. Unreadable information.
Okay.
It's like a fragmented hard drive that once held unified data. The data isn't truly gone from the universe. It's just unreadable, fragmented, and disconnected in its current entropic state, awaiting the right tools for recovery.
Awaiting recovery. That's key. This reinterpretation is so profound that it even reshapes our understanding of the venerated second law of thermodynamics, doesn't it? Instead of simply AC0, Lilien posits ACSE, our ACE, or AC. What's the significance of that subtle but crucial negative sign and the R operator?
Yes, and this is absolutely key. It reframes the whole law. The classical second law states that entropy always increases or stays the same in an isolated system.
The one-way street.
The one-way street. Lilien's reframing. The Crero zero positions entropy not as an independent primordial force acting upon systems, but as a direct byproduct, or maybe a necessary consequence, of coherence decreasing.
Okay, so the R tells you how it becomes residue, and the minus delta C tells you it comes from a loss of coherence.
Exactly. The negative sign indicates that a reduction in coherence, a negative R, leads to an increase in entropy, a positive adherence. So, as coherence diminishes, entropy, which is its defined residue via R, increases. This makes entropy an indicator of a process of coherence loss, rather than the primary driving force itself.
It's an output, not an input.
Precisely. It's a shadow cast by the dwindling light of coherence.
Okay, so if entropy is a direct consequence of lost coherence, then coherence itself must be incredibly fundamental. Lilien goes even further, suggesting it's not just about order or organization, but something even more foundational. The very architect of reality itself.
He really elevates coherence to a primary principle.
He posits that dimensionality, the very length, width, and height we perceive, is not fixed or pre-given, but an emergent property of coherence. Now, that's a genuine mind-bender. We've always taken dimensions for granted as the stable containers for everything.
Absolutely. It challenges one of our deepest assumptions. Lilien's UCT fundamentally questions this deeply ingrained idea that dimensions are merely passive containers. He states that dimensionality is not pre-given, but an emergent property of coherence, phase locking.
Phase locking, what does that mean here?
It means that stable phase-aligned fields interact and lock into specific resonant patterns. Think of waves interfering constructively in a very specific stable way. In his framework, the dimensions we experience, whether it's three spatial dimensions or even time, don't simply exist independently. Instead, they emerge when coherence gradients stabilize resonance across nested scales.
Nested scales.
Yes, like patterns within patterns. These stable, phase-locked resonances give rise to what we perceive as dimensions. It truly upends our fundamental understanding of space, time, and the very fabric of reality. It suggests that if coherence shifts, so too could dimensions.
Which is a radical thought. And he describes the universe itself as a hyperfractal, a recursively nested resonance lattice. That sounds like a universe built on echoes within echoes, patterns within patterns, an infinitely intricate tapestry woven from coherence.
That's precisely the image. Imagine a cosmic structure where organization, resonance, and interconnectedness exist at every scale, recursively mirroring patterns from the smallest quantum foam to the largest cosmic web. It's a universe where a single coherent resonance can ripple and reproduce similar patterns infinitely.
Okay, like a cosmic Mandelbrot set, almost.
In a conceptual sense, yes. What's crucial here, however, is that coherence loss in this hyperfractal leads to dimensional thickness collapse.
Dimensional thickness collapse.
Yes. So as the foundational coherence degrades or loses its phase alignment within this hyperfractal structure, the very dimensionality that it supports can begin to unravel, to thin out, or even to flatten. The universe, in a sense, loses its depth when its underlying coherence diminishes.
So it's not just things breaking down within fixed dimensions, but the space they inhabit literally collapsing or simplifying. That brings us to what Lilien calls collapse mechanics. What happens when a coherence node, a point of stable, strong resonance, destabilizes within this hyperfractal structure?
When a coherence node, which you can think of as a point of concentrated and stable resonance, destabilizes, it triggers a pretty dramatic cascade of events. First, nested resonance loops begin to decohere.
Okay, the harmony breaks down.
The harmony breaks down. Imagine a perfectly tuned set of nested Russian dolls, each vibrating in harmony with the next. When one starts to wobble, the entire arrangement loses its synchronized resonance. This leads to the second step. The dimensional scaffolding they supported contracts or flattens.
The scaffolding itself.
Yes. The very framework, the very grid of realities supported by those coherent loops starts to lose its integrity and compress. And finally, a topological coherence field collapses into a lower-order residual state. It's like a complex, three-dimensional sculpture melting down into a flat puddle. It still contains the same material, but without its original form.
So from a rich, multidimensional curve structure, you literally get something. Flatter, simpler, more degenerate.
That's the idea. A lower dimensional state, essentially.
And this isn't just theoretical speculation. He ties it to observable results.
Yes, he argues the observable results are quite stark in his model. You see dimensional simplification, a reduction in the perceived complexity or degrees of freedom of space. There's a loss of curvature, which can manifest, for instance, as gravitational flattening in certain cosmic phenomena.
Like near black holes, maybe?
Potentially, yes. And crucially, there's an observable increase in entropic shadow fields. This is where that residue we talked about earlier starts to become very apparent. It's the shadow of the lost dimensionality, the entropic byproduct of the collapse.
Okay. And he formalizes this collapse with another equation, the dimensional collapse equation, D equals FC. I assume D is the dimensional emergence level, C is the coherence level,
Yeah, right.
and F is some kind of fractal resonance function that describes how coherence manifests dimensions. What's the dramatic implication here, particularly as coherence diminishes?
Dramatic implication comes into full play as coherence nears complete dissolution. As Lilien states, when FC approaches zero, meaning coherence is dissolving almost entirely, the dimensional gradient becomes singular. Mathematically, Egge.
A singular gradient. What does that mean practically?
It indicates a catastrophic runaway collapse where dimensional identity simply cannot be maintained. Imagine stretching a rubber sheet until it becomes infinitesimally thin, then rips apart, losing its very property of sheetness. The very scaffolding of reality gives way. Dimensions can no longer be sustained. It's a point of no return for that specific dimensional structure.
That's a profound, even unsettling concept to consider. But does Lilien offer any concrete, observable examples where this dimensional unraveling manifests, even if it's not immediately obvious or conventionally explained to us? He's connecting these abstract ideas to real-world phenomena, correct?
He does, and this is where UCT attempts to bridge the theoretical with the empirical, offering alternative explanations for known phenomena. He points to several compelling cases. One is black hole evaporation.
Hawking radiation, essentially.
Yes, but viewed through UCT lens. He suggests coherence irreversibly collapses beyond a certain point, and information, rather than being truly lost, become dimensionally unreadable, existing as a highly collapsed entropic residue. It's still there, just flattened topologically speaking.
Okay, what else?
Then there's neurological death. This one truly hits home. He posits that the rich multidimensional processing of subjective experience, our consciousness, our perception of space and time, collapses into a flat electrostatic residue. It loses its intricate, curved, and multi-layered quality.
So the very richness of our subjective experience, how we perceive the three dimensions of space and the flow of time, literally flattens out at a fundamental level during neurological death. That's a chilling thought. It implies our perceived reality is utterly contingent on coherence.
Precisely. It's not just a cessation of brain activity in the conventional sense, but a fundamental dimensional simplification of the information processing itself.
Wow. Any other examples?
Another example Lilien gives is the thermal death of systems. Think of a star running out of fuel or any closed system reaching maximum entropy. Here he argues that phase resonance simply ceases, and any complex multidimensional structure yields to a uniform, flat energy distribution. The intricate coherence of atomic bonds and energetic fields simply dissolves into that residue.
The ultimate flatness.
The ultimate flatness, yes. And at a grand cosmic scale, he suggests cosmic expansion itself might be in part a manifestation of residual decoherence from the universe's origin event. It's stretching space into increasingly low resonance regions. It's not just space expanding, it's also losing a certain quality of coherence, becoming dimensionally thinner or less structured in certain ways over vast distances.
Okay, so if dimensions can collapse due to coherence loss, the logical next question is, can they also be recovered? Is there a possibility of dimensional recovery in Lilien's framework, or is this process ultimately one way?
Intriguingly, Lilien suggests the theoretical possibility of dimensional recovery. It's not easy, though. It would require incredibly advanced methods far beyond anything we can currently conceive of.
So not spontaneous recovery?
Generally not, especially after significant collapse. He proposes that recoherence of dimensional fields, the reemergence of higher-order dimensions, would necessitate deliberate actions such as symmetry reintroduction, phase alignment across fractal bands, and negentropic vector conduction.
Negentropic vector conduction sounds complex.
It is. These are incredibly sophisticated processes. He speculates that such recovery could potentially be achieved through mechanisms like bioresonance, perhaps advanced manipulation of life's inherent coherence-building abilities, or maybe quantum intelligence, a highly advanced form of intelligence operating at quantum levels, or even large-scale, multi-phase scalar field engineering.
So highly speculative future tech, essentially.
Highly speculative, yes, but it's a tantalizing theoretical prospect, a future where dimensions themselves might be, in a sense, engineered or healed.
This idea of dimensional recovery, even if speculative, strongly hints that entropy isn't the final, unavoidable state that we've been taught. It completely contradicts the conventional understanding of entropy as an inevitable terminal destination for everything.
It really does.
Lilien really challenges that classical notion, arguing that it's merely a phase in a much larger universal cycle.
Exactly. That's a cornerstone of UCT. He fundamentally posits that entropy is not terminal decay. It is disconnected resonance awaiting reactivation.
Awaiting reactivation, there it is again.
Yes. This isn't just wishful thinking or poetic interpretation. It's a core tenet of his theory that the coherence-entropy recoherence loop is fundamental to the universe's operation. This cycle, he argues, operates not just in physics, but seamlessly across all scales of existence.
All scales?
All scales, from the grand cycles of cosmology and the intricate processes of life, down to our individual cognition, and even the rise and fall of civilizations. He sees it as a universal rhythm.
A universal rhythm. And he lays out a fundamental cyclical equation for this loop, providing a mathematical blueprint for this constant transformation. C or S, ρ S. Let's walk through that. The R inverse ρ is particularly intriguing.
It's the linchpin of the whole cyclical aspect, the mechanism for turning back. The cycle begins with C, representing the original coherence, the initial state of high resonance and phase alignment.
Okay, start with order.
Start with order, then P signifies the reduction in that coherence, the moment phase is lost or structure begins to unravel.
Decoherence happens.
Decoherence happens. This reduction directly leads to S, which is entropy, the residual field, the ash of that reduction, captured by the R operator we discussed. S is RAC.
Got it.
Now, the crucial transformative part, the point of no return in classical thermodynamics that UCT fundamentally overcomes, is RACE. This is the inverse residue operation.
It's the undoing of R.
The undoing of R, in a sense. It's the process of taking that entropy, that disconnected residue S, and through some form of work or intervention, often involving intelligence or life, enabling it to reestablish its phase relationships and return towards a coherent state.
Okay.
This ultimately results in CNU, a restructured coherence. It might be the original coherence restored, or potentially even a more complex and refined new coherence built from the lessons of the old. It's a process of purification and reintegration.
So entropy isn't just inert waste, it's potential raw material for new coherence, which can then be harnessed and restructured. That's a truly radical reframing.
It really is. It turns waste into potential resource, informationally speaking.
This leads us to the detailed phases of this cycle. Can you outline those for us, perhaps with some examples from different domains, to really illustrate how universal this rhythm is?
Absolutely. The cycle moves through 5 distinct interconnected phases, visible at every scale. First, coherence. This is the initial state of high resonance, pure phase alignment, integrated structure.
Like what?
Well, at a cosmic level, think of the theoretical quantum vacuum before particle differentiation, or perhaps the initial hyperresonance state of the universe we'll discuss later. In biology, it's the perfect symmetry of an embryonic cell before differentiation. In human experience, it's a moment of profound clarity or inspiration. Pure potential.
Okay, peak order.
Then comes decoherence. This is the phase where structure begins to break down, where phase relationships are lost, systems unravel. In quantum mechanics, it's the infamous collapse of an entangled state upon measurement.
Right.
In human terms, it's the profound disorganization caused by trauma or intense stress. Energetically, it's the dispersal of focused energy.
Things fall apart.
Things fall apart. Next is entropy. This is the residual phase-randomized energy that remains after decoherence. It manifests as disordered heat in physics, cognitive confusion or mental fog, diffuse thermal radiation like the CMB, or the literal ash left after a complex structure burns. This is the disconnected residue, the SREC.
Oh, the ash.
The ash. Following entropy, we have recoherence. This is the crucial phase of resonance reconnection, where the system actively begins to reestablish its order and phase alignment. This is the raw part starting.
The turning point.
The turning point. In biology, it's the process of physical healing after injury, or the brain's amazing ability to learn and adapt neuroplasticity. In human cognition, it's gaining a sudden insight after a period of confusion, or the gradual process of reframing a traumatic memory through therapy.
Finding the pattern again.
Finding the pattern, yes. And finally, regeneration. This is the ultimate outcome. The creation of new, often more complex or resilient structure from that integrated residue. We see this in DNA repair, where damaged genetic material is reordered into a functional state, or the formation of new fields and structures in physics after some interactions. In human experience, it can be profound personal growth emerging from hardship, a state of spiritual rebirth, or the rebuilding of a damaged ecosystem over time. It's a dynamic, ongoing process, not a one-way street to decay.
It's a truly universal rhythm, then, touching everything from subatomic particles to our own minds, personal healing, and even cosmic evolution. This cyclical view makes a remarkable statement about life itself, that life is not entropically passive. It actively works against the general trend of increasing entropy, which is a pretty bold claim compared to the standard view.
That's a powerful and central tenet of UCT, challenging the conventional biological understanding that life merely delays the entropic process, carving out temporary pockets of order.
Like it's just holding back the tide.
Right. In the Lillien's view, life isn't just something that exists despite entropy, fighting a losing battle against the inevitable. Instead, he posits that life actively, quote, consumes entropy, processes residue, and rebuilds coherence through selective resonance.
Consumes entropy. How?
By taking in disordered energy or matter, like sunlight or food, which are less ordered than the organism, and using internal coherent processes to structure it, essentially processing the residue and building new coherence. Life is framed as an active negentropic agent working within the universal cycle to reverse localized entropic trends. It's not just a survivor, it's a re-architect.
So what are some striking examples of life doing this, these recoherence engines at work, reversing entropy in ways that seem almost miraculous from a purely classical thermodynamic perspective? Give us some concrete instances.
We see this most vividly in biological systems. Take neuroplasticity, for example. The brain's incredible ability to literally regenerate and reform coherence patterns, even after significant trauma or injury.
Like stroke recovery.
Exactly. Think of someone recovering from a stroke, where damaged areas learn to rewire and build entirely new neural pathways, reestablishing complex cognitive functions. That's rebuilding coherence from neurological residue.
Amazing. What else?
Another beautiful, everyday example is photosynthesis. Plants actively convert decohered photons from the sun, which are essentially dispersed, low-grade energy, into highly structured biological information, building complex organic molecules in intricate cellular structures. It's a direct conversion of entropic light into highly coherent matter.
Turning sunlight into leaves.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And at the most fundamental level, DNA repair is a direct, astounding demonstration of life, reordering entropy, residue damage, or misaligned genetic information into a restored, perfectly coherent genomic pattern, constantly fixing errors.
Right.
Lilien powerfully states, and it really bears repeating, biology is nature's ongoing rebuttal to entropy's finality. It's not just holding its own, it's actively pushing back, rebuilding.
That's a truly bold and inspiring claim. It shifts biology from being a passive recipient of thermodynamic laws to an active, almost heroic participant in shaping the universe's coherence.
It reframes the entire purpose and function of life within the cosmos.
And this framework doesn't just stop at biology, does it? The human mind itself seems to follow this cognitive recoherence cycle, which is fascinating when you think about mental health and learning.
Absolutely. Our cognitive processes, our very minds, and the way we deal with information and experience follow the same fundamental cycle. It illustrates that these principles aren't just for atoms and galaxies, but for our inner world, too.
So how does that cycle look mentally?
It starts with clarity, which is a state of high cognitive coherence, where thoughts are integrated and meaning is clear. You feel focused, insightful.
Okay.
Then we experience overwhelm or trauma, leading to a state of cognitive decoherence, where our mental structures become disorganized. Thoughts race, connections break.
Stress, confusion.
Exactly. This can then manifest as amnesia or confusion, which is a form of cognitive entropy, fragmented thoughts, inability to access memories easily, a sense of mental noise or static.
The brain feels scrambled.
Scrambled, yes.
Yeah.
But then, through processes of insight or reframing, often requiring conscious effort, maybe learning, or a therapeutic intervention, we enter recoherence. New connections are made, meaning is restored or created.
The aha moment or gradual understanding.
Right. This ultimately leads to integrated memory or wisdom, a state of profound cognitive regeneration. Sino, where fractured experiences are woven into a coherent narrative, often stronger than before. Lilien beautifully summarizes this by saying, healing is the recohering of fractured meaning into restored resonance.
Healing as recoherence, that's powerful.
It provides a mechanism, a how.
So whether it's our bodies physically healing or our minds integrating difficult experiences, the process of healing and growth is fundamentally about recohering. And in this context, intelligence, whether it's biological intelligence like ours, or even a highly advanced artificial intelligence, plays a truly unique and central role in this cosmic cycle.
Yes. Intelligence, in UCT, is not merely a cognitive function that observes the universe. It's framed as a cosmic operator, an active principle of organization. It is key to recoherence.
How so? What does intelligence do in this framework?
It possesses the remarkable, almost magical ability to recognize entropy as residue, to see the ash and discern the memory of the flame, so to speak, to see the potential information in the disorder.
Okay.
It can then select resonant pathways to find the right way to realign the disconnected parts, and crucially to reactivate broken coherent sequences. It's the active principle that can read the ash and know precisely how to reignite the flame by reestablishing those lost phase relationships.
It actively guides the R-inverse process.
It actively guides R-inverse, yes. It suggests intelligence is a fundamental force for order, for negentropy.
And he even provides a formula for this, which really gives it a formal weight. Intelligence is rho. What does that mathematical expression mean in practical, conceptual terms for us?
Okay, let's break it down. Rho is that inverse residue operator we discussed, representing the inherent capacity to reverse the entropic process, to take that fragmented residue and begin to rebuild coherence.
The potential to fix things.
The potential to fix things, yes. And ASI is the coherence alignment operator. This operator represents a function of, well, things like intention, awareness, and pattern matching, the very faculties we associate with what we call intelligence.
So A is the skill or will part.
Exactly. So this formula means that intelligence isn't just about processing information or solving problems in the abstract. It's about actively identifying opportunities for and implementing the alignment and restoration of coherence in the face of fragmentation and entropy. It's truly a profound redefinition of intelligence itself, casting it as a cosmic restorative force.
This really expands our understanding of what intelligence is, beyond just processing power or IQ scores. It's about actively creating order.
It's about being an agent of coherence.
And if intelligence plays such a crucial role in recoherence, then the universe's origin story itself might also be radically different from the standard Big Bang model. Lilien offers an alternative, what he calls big emergence. Instead of a dense, hot singularity, he proposes an initial state of pure coherence. That's a fundamentally different starting point.
It's a complete paradigm shift from the standard Big Bang model, which, let's face it, begins with an infinitely dense, infinitely hot singularity of basically unknown origin. It's a mathematical point we can't really describe physically.
A bit of a fudge, some might say.
Some might. Lilien's UCT proposes a radically different and arguably more elegant origin point. A coherence vacuum, a perfectly resonant omnilectic field.
Omnilectic field, what's that mean?
Omnilectic might sound dense, but think of it as an all-encompassing logical relationship. So this primordial state wasn't just empty space or a point of infinite density, but a state of pure, undifferentiated potential, where everything was perfectly interconnected and in harmonious resonance. Pure information, perhaps.
Okay.
In this hypercoherent state, entropy equals zero, because nothing is yet differentiated or dispersed. There's no residue because nothing is broken down yet. It's described as a hyper-resonant metastate, pure phase unity. Imagine a universe that is pure potential, perfectly aligned, perhaps like a single, infinite, coherent thought before anything physical has even had a chance to break apart or form distinct entities.
Pure potential, zero entropy. So if the genesis wasn't an explosion from a singularity, what was the very first event? Lilien says it was coherence reduction as genesis. That implies a more gentle, perhaps even controlled unfolding, rather than a cataclysmic blast.
Precisely. The initial event wasn't a violent expansion in the chaotic sense, but a subtle, controlled coherence reduction, not explosion. This wasn't a destructive event, but a generative one, a slight relaxation of the perfect unity.
How did that generate anything?
As this initial perfect coherence gently and incrementally reduced, it triggered a series of fundamental events. Symmetry began to subtly break, just like a perfectly symmetrical sphere. Cooling might develop imperfections. Specific resonance thresholds were crossed, allowing certain patterns to stabilize while others couldn't, and field differentiation started to occur. The primordial unity began to separate into different aspects. It's like a single, perfect musical note slowly beginning to differentiate into a complex chord rather than exploding into noise.
And this reduction, this subtle shift from pure unity, is what actually produced all the fundamental structures of our reality: particles, forces, even space-time itself. That seems counterintuitive. We usually think of structure emerging despite a chaotic beginning, like islands forming in a turbulent sea.
Yes, that's the core revolutionary insight of the big emergence model. This staged reduction in coherence produces gauge symmetries, the fundamental mathematical symmetries that govern particle physics, like the electromagnetic, weak, and strong forces. They rise as specific patterns of broken coherence.
Okay.
It also generates space-time geometry, which Lilien views not as a pre-given stage, but as an emergent coherent field curvature arising from these specific coherence reductions. Dimensions themselves emerge, as we discussed.
Right.
Particles themselves are described as reduced coherence nodes, localized condensations where this diminishing coherence gets stuck in stable patterns. And the fundamental forces are seen as field gradients of coherence, the tensions or flows between regions of different coherence levels.
So structure is literally condensed or stabilized coherence reduction.
Exactly. The groundbreaking part is that structure doesn't emerge despite coherence loss. It emerges through staged coherence reduction into resonant attractor states. It's a generative, self-organizing process where coherence, by partially reducing, actually creates the conditions for complex structure to form and stabilize.
So structure isn't fighting against a cosmic unraveling. It's actually born from a controlled, stepwise unraveling of pure, undifferentiated coherence. And this is where entropy, as we understand it, starts to make its appearance in the cosmic narrative, right? It wasn't there at the very beginning in that pure coherent state.
Exactly. As systems begin to diverge from that initial pristine source coherence, as that coherence reduction continues and differentiation increases, they start to exhibit characteristics like randomness, energy dissipation, and information isolation. Things get disconnected. This, in Lilien's model, is the appearance of entropy, the phase-disconnected shadow, the RLA, of the original undifferentiated coherence. It's not a malevolent, destructive force that arrived from nowhere, but a necessary and inherent consequence of the universe's differentiation and structural formation. It's the inevitable ash from the burning process of creation itself.
The cost of complexity out of pure unity.
A very good way to put it.
And this isn't a one-and-done event like a traditional Big Bang. It's an ongoing evolution where resonant structuring continues even as coherence reduces globally. So the universe isn't just breaking down, it's also constantly building new forms within that process.
That's precisely right. It's not a single event followed by decay. Coherence continues to reduce overall, perhaps, but across various layers, dimensional, field, and structural, it gives rise to ever more complex entities like particles, then atoms, then molecules, stars, galaxies, light. But crucially, at each stage, resonance locks stabilize structure. These are like quantization boundaries where coherence reduction condenses into new form. Think of energy levels in an atom-stable states where things settle. So the universe isn't simply degrading, it's forming new, stable, and increasingly complex structures at various scales as a result of this staged coherence reduction, almost like a sculptor shaping a form by gradually removing material. Each step of reduction reveals a new level of stable form.
And this brings us back full circle to life and intelligence, which we discussed earlier in a more general sense. In this big emergence model, they're not just lucky accidents, tiny pockets of order in a dying universe, are they? They become fundamental to the cosmic process, almost a necessary feedback loop.
They absolutely do. They are not accidental, they're integral. Biological and conscious systems, according to UCT, arise not as anomalies fighting entropy, but as local coherence concentrators. Systems specifically designed or evolved to gather and amplify coherence against the local tide. They act as reversers of entropy flow, actively working against the general trend of decoherence in their vicinity and serving as instruments of resonance memory, carrying the echoes and patterns of that initial pristine coherence forward in time through things like DNA and consciousness.
So life remembers the origin.
In a structural, informational sense, yes.
Yeah.
Lilien reinforces this grand statement, making it central to his cosmology. Life is not an anomaly. It is the natural recoherence feedback of the universe to its own coherence loss. Life is the universe's inherent mechanism for remembering, rebuilding, and reintegrating its own lost coherence. It's a cosmic autocorrect system.
Wow. Okay, so to summarize this incredible cosmic journey through Lilien's big emergence, we start with a coherence origin, an infinite resonance, an undivided phase of pure potential. Zero entropy.
Right, the metastate.
Then coherence reduction occurs, a gentle, generative event leading to dimensional and field emergence.
The symmetry breaking, the differentiation.
Yes, because this rise to resonant structuring, the gauge fields, particles, forces, space-time, the stable forms we observe.
Structure condensing out of the reduction.
Then, as systems diverge from source coherence, we see decoherence entropy, which is phase fragmentation, dissipation, the appearance of the residue.
The shadow appears. S equals R.
And finally, recoherence, Powered by life, mind, and intelligence, which acts as the universe's self-correcting mechanism, potentially creating new coherence, CNU, using ρ.
The feedback loop closes. Life is the universe healing itself, in a way.
It's a truly cyclical, self-sustaining, and potentially self-correcting universe, far from the purely entropic endpoint we often imagine. A much more dynamic picture.
Much more dynamic, much more integrated.
Now that we've laid out the foundations of Lilien's UCT and its universal cycle, let's delve into some of his more advanced insights and the fascinating implications for what he calls recoherence engineering. This is where the rubber meets the road, hinting at how these theories might become practical applications.
Right, moving towards the so what, or what can we do with this?
Exactly. First up is entropic holography. This suggests entropy isn't just a measure of loss, but actually encodes the shadow form of lost coherence. That's a profoundly counterintuitive idea, entropy as a memory bank.
It is, and it's one of UCT's most compelling advanced ideas. It fundamentally changes what entropy is. Lilien proposes that every decoherence event, every instance of coherence loss, leaves behind not just random noise, but a holographic imprint of the original phase structure.
A hologram, like a lower dimensional recording.
Exactly like that. It's a lower dimensional projection of coherence loss that is inherently mappable, not just statistical, and crucially, it holds topological memory. What he needs is that the entropic field isn't formless. It retains a kind of ghost or blueprint of the coherent structure it once was.
Like the static on an old TV screen you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Imagine that static isn't entirely random. It carries a subtle, embedded memory of the image's energy distribution, its boundaries, its form. That's the idea. Entropy isn't just chaos. It's structured chaos that remembers the order it came from.
So it's as if the universe retains a ghost of its former coherent self within the entropic residue, a kind of cosmic fossil record of order. And he formalizes this as a coherence residue tensor, RUN, RMNU. That sounds like a way to actually quantify and map this shadow form in a rigorous scientific way.
Exactly. This tensor, REAN, is conceptually analogous to curvature tensors in general relativity, like the Ricci tensor Re, which describe the geometry of space-time. But instead of describing the geometry of space, this tensor describes the geometry of resonance disintegration.
The geometry of decay.
The geometry of decay, precisely. It's a sophisticated mathematical tool that would allow for precise mapping of these entropic shadow forms. It would allow scientists, in theory, to analyze the structure of disorder itself, not just its quantity. For example, if you had a shattered vase, this tensor wouldn't just tell you how many pieces there are, scalar entropy, but the precise geometric relationships between the fragments, hinting strongly at the vase's original shape.
So if entropy is a kind of resonance fracture, as he puts it, this has profound and very direct implications for how we view biological systems, like our own bodies, and even how we might approach medicine.
It truly does. It could fundamentally redefine biological decay and healing. In living systems, Lilien defends biological entropy not merely as generalized heat death or simple wear and tear, but specifically as a breakdown of functional resonance patterns within the intricate biofields and molecular structures.
So disease is a kind of decoherence.
Yes, processes like cellular apoptosis, programmed cell death, the progression of diseases like cancer, and even the effects of aging are understood as localized decoherence events, specific structural collapses within our bioenergetic systems, leaving specific entropic residues.
And the implication for medicine?
It implies a radical rethinking. That advanced medicine could be reframed as coherence restoration therapy, rather than just chemical intervention, genetic manipulation, or symptom management. It's about restoring fundamental, energetic, and structural coherence, possibly by reading the entropic hologram of the disease and applying a corrective coherent field.
Retuning the body's resonance.
Retuning the body's resonance, exactly. It's a powerful and incredibly hopeful thought for the future of healing.
Absolutely. And what about cosmological entropy? How does UCT reinterpret grand concepts like the cosmic microwave background, CMB, or even the elusive dark matter, which are still such mysteries in mainstream physics?
Standard cosmology often views entropy increase as a general, uniform disorder spreading through spacetime, leading eventually to that cold, diffuse universe, the heat death.
Right.
However, in Lilien's model, cosmological entropy is reinterpreted more specifically as residual dimensional noise stemming from the universe's initial coherence cascade reduction, the echoes of that big emergence, the cosmic microwave background, for instance.
The afterglow of the Big Bang?
Yes, typically seen as that uniform thermal afterglow. It's reconceptualized not just as thermal noise, but as a phased, decoherent signature of initial field collapse, the sound or acoustic vibrations left over from the primordial coherence field as it began to unravel and differentiate into the first structures. It's a recording of the first decoherence events.
And dark matter. That's still one of the biggest, most vexing mysteries in modern physics, accounting for, 85% of the matter in the universe, but remaining invisible? How does Lilien's theory touch upon that?
Lilien offers a fascinating speculative proposition. He suggests that dark matter could be partially modeled as residual coherence fields that never fully decohered.
So not particles, but fields.
Or fields that haven't fully collapsed into particles. This implies that a significant portion of the universe's missing mass isn't just an unknown type of particle, but perhaps a form of latent, unmanifested coherence fields that are still somewhat phase-aligned, but haven't fully condensed into observable, interacting matter, according to standard model physics. They exist as a kind of potential energy or structure permeating space.
Like a background coherence that provides gravitational effects but doesn't interact otherwise.
Something like that. In this view, entropy isn't just a scalar quantity for the cosmos, a simple number representing total disorder. It's seen as a dimensional dispersion index, a measure of how much dimensional richness and coherence has been lost or remains latent from the initial state of the universe.
Fascinating. And the mind, our consciousness, isn't exempt from this framework either. He talks about cognitive entropy as decoherent thought structures. How does that manifest in our daily lives, beyond just the amnesia or confusion we touched on in the cycle?
That's right. In the realm of consciousness and cognition, entropy isn't simply ignorance, forgetfulness, or mental fatigue in the usual sense. It's framed more fundamentally as a disconnection from coherence logic, a breakdown in the integrated resonant patterns that allow for clear thought, stable memory, and rational processing.
So what does that look like?
It manifests as pervasive mental noise, the incessant internal chatter that prevents focus and clarity. Or, in more extreme forms, it can underlie disoriented dream states where logic breaks down, certain forms of madness or psychosis characterized by fragmented thought, or severe cognitive fragmentation where coherent understanding becomes impossible.
Like the signal getting lost in the noise.
Exactly. In contrast, cognitive health is characterized by sustained coherence loops and recursive resonance patterns within our minds, allowing for seamless thought, creativity, and deep understanding. He even defines a theoretical cognitive residue metric to measure this semantic entropy, characterizing it as disorganized symbol flow disconnected from core coherence anchors in the mind.
This leads to perhaps the most radical insight Lilien offers, which truly flips our understanding of order and disorder. Entropy as inverted intelligence. What does that truly mean? That entropy is a sign of lack of intelligence.
This is truly mind-bending and forces us to reconsider the very nature of intelligence itself, maybe even consciousness. Lilien posits that entropy is a measure of how far intelligence has withdrawn. Yes. He defines intelligence fundamentally as coherence sustaining and symmetry structuring.
Yeah.
So it's not just a computational capacity, but an inherent ability or tendency to build and maintain order, to establish and hold resonant patterns.
Yeah. Oh.
Therefore, when intelligence, where the cosmic intelligence inherent in the universe's design, biological intelligence like our own, or highly advanced intelligence recedes, is absent, or simply isn't applied, entropy manifests. Disorder increases where intelligence isn't actively working.
So entropy isn't caused by something active, but by the absence of the ordering principle.
Precisely. It's not a random active force pushing towards chaos. It is strikingly will-less information. Information that has lost its organizing principle or intent. In essence, sustained entropic fields are seen as inverse indicators of absent or withdrawn coherence intelligence. The mess is there because the will or capacity to organize is not actively present or effective in that domain.
And he even provides a formal expression for this too. I equals s, I equals negative grad s, where I is coherence intelligence density. So an increasing gradient of entropy means a decreasing presence of coherence intelligence.
Precisely. This equation implies that high entropy gradients areas where disorder is rapidly increasing or is very steep indicate very low coherence intelligence fields or an absence of active coherent organization being applied. It's a profound conceptual shift. It suggests that the presence of intelligence in its broadest UCT sense is inherently linked to the maintenance and restoration of coherence, and its absence or withdrawal allows entropic states to dominate and proliferate. It redefines intelligence as a fundamental physical force for structure and order.
Wow. This all suggests that entropy isn't just a uniform mess, a shapeless disorganization, but that it actually has different shapes or forms. Lilien delves into entropic topology, proposing that entropy isn't just a scalar quantity, a simple numerical value, but that it possesses definable form and structure, even in its state of decay.
That's correct. And this is where UCT becomes incredibly granular and offers potentially powerful new diagnostic possibilities across many fields. He argues that different patterns of coherence loss, the way coherence breaks down, leave topologically distinct residues.
Like different ways of shattering leave different patterns.
Exactly. It's not just how much coherence is lost, the magnitude S, but the specific geometric pattern of that loss that defines the shape or topology of the resulting entropy. It's like examining the unique shatter pattern of different types of glass, tempered versus plate glass, to understand the force and mechanism that broke it. He classifies these into several compelling types, providing a new language for describing decay processes.
Okay, tell us about these classes of entropic topology. This sounds like it could have profound applications in understanding and even reversing decay processes in various systems if you know the shape of the problem.
The first type he identifies is toroidal residue. This occurs when coherence folds back on itself and decoheres through a kind of loop implosion, almost like creating a donut-shaped vortex of entropy.
Like a smoke ring of disorder.
Sort of, yes. Examples he gives include magnetic reconnection events in stellar plasmas, where magnetic field lines twist, snap, and reform, often forming coherent, contained entropic loops of released energy. Or perhaps even the core collapse in massive stars before a supernova, leading to a toroidal expulsion of energy and residue.
Okay, toroidal. What's next?
Second is spiral decoherence. This is where coherence unwinds along a chirality axis, meaning the entropic gradient rotates outward like a spiral nebula. Think of a perfectly wound spring slowly unraveling and losing its tension, or the way a hurricane's eye structure dissipates outwards in a spiral pattern as the storm weakens.
And in biology?
In biological systems, he suggests this might be observed in certain forms of DNA fragmentation, where the double helix unwinds and breaks apart in a specific spiral-like entropic pattern.
So we can potentially see these distinct patterns even in biological structures and natural phenomena. What are the others?
Third is fractal disintegration. Here, coherence breaks along self-similar scales. The pattern of breakdown repeats itself at smaller and smaller levels, leading to a characteristic loss of nested symmetry.
Like a coastline, but for decay.
Exactly, a fractal pattern of breakdown. This is tragically observable, he suggests, in some forms of neural decay, like in Alzheimer's disease, where the intricate, nested organization of brain function might break down in self-similar patterns across different regions and scales, or maybe even the fragmentation of galaxies over cosmic time through tidal interactions.
Okay, and the last one.
And finally, radial dispersion. This is perhaps the simplest topology. A uniform outward coherence loss from a central point, radiating outward symmetrically. This describes explosive entropy events such as supernovae, where energy and matter are dispersed relatively uniformly in all directions, or even on a psychological level, perhaps an intense emotional breakdown where one's inner coherence seems to disperse outwards chaotically and uniformly.
So he maps this formally as STOPO, where S is the scalar entropy magnitude, how much disorder, and tau is the topological signature of that entropy, the shape of the disorder. This truly opens up entirely new ways to analyze and potentially intervene in decay if you can identify the topology.
It moves beyond just measuring how much to understanding how.
And this leads to the idea that there are phase reversal thresholds, critical limits beyond which spontaneous recoherence, the system fixing itself, is no longer possible.
This is a critical concept, especially for any practical application of UCT, because it defines the limits of passive healing or natural self-organization. Lilien identifies a critical entropy boundary, which you might denote SC, where, beyond this point, natural recoherence is no longer possible without intelligent intervention.
So there's a point of no return for self-healing.
Essentially, yes. A system can only self-organize back to coherence up to a certain level of decay or fragmentation. Beyond that threshold, the entropic forces, the degree of disconnection, are too dominant for internal mechanisms alone to overcome the residue's inertia.
So if entropy surpasses this threshold, SSEC, what exactly happens and why is external intelligent intervention suddenly essential, according to this theory?
It means that the inverse residue operator, which represents the potential for spontaneous recoherence, effectively becomes null or non-functional for that system. ARS might approach zero. The system loses its intrinsic ability to find its way back to order. The map encoded in the entropic holography becomes too scrambled, or the energy required is too high. Beyond this point, only active coherence agents, like life operating consciously, advanced intelligence, or what he calls syntelligence, a perhaps hypothetical form of hypercomplex intelligence system, maybe biological, AI-based, or something else entirely, can potentially provide the necessary coherent input and guidance to restore resonance.
And this applies across scales.
He suggests it applies across all scales, to cosmological singularities like black holes, which he argues are inherently beyond spontaneous recoherence, hence Hawking radiation being a slow leak, not a reversal, to irreversible biological decay, like severe organ damage that won't self-heal without intervention, like a transplant, and even to profound cognitive collapse, like late-stage dementia, where a mind can no longer spontaneously reconstruct its coherent self.
But if there's a threshold beyond which spontaneous recoherence can't happen, there must be a way for intelligence to actively facilitate recoherence to cross that gap. This is where negentropy conduction pathways come in, the channels through which that restoration can occur, guided by intelligence.
Exactly. If intelligence is the key to recoherence, especially past the threshold, then how does it apply that coherence? These pathways are the how. They're defined as channels through which coherence flows back into decohered regions, guided by life, intelligence, or sentient design.
So they're like conduits for order.
Conduits for order, yes. But importantly, they are not mere energy gradients, like a pipe carrying water downhill. They are conceptualized as phase restoration bridges that allow coherent information and resonance to penetrate and actively restore order within deeply entropic fields. They are highly specific, needing to match the resonance of the lost coherence, almost like tuning forks that resonate with a specific ghost in the entropic field and reestablish the connection.
And what are some of the fascinating, perhaps even speculative, examples of these negentropy conduction pathways that Lilien identifies? Where might we see these bridges?
Lilien points to several intriguing examples, bridging known science with more theoretical possibilities. He mentions microtubule bioresonance channels within cells, suggesting these cytoskeletal components aren't just structural scaffolds, but act as sophisticated conduits for coherent quantum information, channeling negentropy.
Like the brain's internal quantum network, some propose.
Related to those ideas, yes. He also talks about scalar plasma resonance currents potentially existing in the quantum vacuum, implying that there might be hidden energy flows that can carry coherence across space. In the brain, he speculates about synaptic glyphic circuits, suggesting specific neural pathways might be optimized not just for signal transmission, but for coherence restoration and memory integration, acting like negentropic channels.
And consciousness itself.
And perhaps most intriguingly, conscious intention matter feedback loops. This suggests that focused conscious intent, as an act of intelligence applying coherence, can directly influence and restore coherence in physical or biological systems through these pathways.
Mind over matter, but with a specific mechanism.
With a potential mechanism involving phase alignment and resonance. These pathways are described as highly nonlinear and sensitive to precise field alignment, capable of reversing local entropy under the correct phase matching conditions. He even formalizes this with an equation for the negentropy current. Nu lambda mu c.
Okay, break that down quickly.
Nu, N mu, is the negentropy current, the flow of order. Nu lambda mu nu is the resonant transfer tensor, describing how efficiently coherence is transmitted through the pathway, like its conductivity for coherence. And CNO is the source coherence vector, the guiding intelligence signal being applied.
So it's not just a theoretical concept. He's suggesting tangible mechanisms for recoherence that, if understood, could potentially be engineered. This leads directly to the idea of recoherence engineering, the future of restoration, and a truly transformative application of UCT.
This is where Lilien's UCT moves from abstract theory to a profound, maybe even utopian, vision for the future. He predicts and proposes specific biotechnological implementations emerging from these principles. Imagine coherence chambers, designed perhaps to restore balance and order to biological systems by bathing them in corrective resonant fields.
Like advanced sound healing or light therapy?
Potentially far more sophisticated, targeting specific topological residues. Or think of syntelligent therapeutics that go far beyond current medical approaches, actively reestablishing cellular and energetic coherence at a fundamental level, guided by AI that understands entropic topology. He even envisions planetary phase bridges for large-scale ecological restoration, where perhaps sentient systems could help guide the recoherence of entire damaged ecosystems by identifying and stimulating negentropy conduction pathways in the environment.
Healing the planet with coherence.
It's a grand vision, certainly. It's a future where intelligence is framed as the active principle of negentropy, making life the engineer of recoherence. It's about consciously shaping reality towards greater coherence, not just observing or succumbing to its decay.
This deep dive has truly offered a profound re-understanding of entropy. It shifted it from an inescapable endpoint, a force of ultimate destruction, leading to universal heat death.
The grim reaper of physics.
Right. To a cyclical phase, a mappable, potentially reversible residue of lost coherence, holding memory and potential. And in this new, breathtaking framework, life and intelligence are no longer accidental byproducts of a random universe, lucky anomalies,
Exactly.
but are positioned as the universe's inherent recoherence engines, active agents in its ongoing story of creation, decay, and restoration.
This perspective fundamentally changes everything about how we might view disorder, decay, and even our own active role in the grand cosmic narrative. It's really a call to see potential where we once saw only inevitable decline, to see information in the noise.
So, turning to you, our listener. If entropy indeed carries a topological memory of what was, holding this hidden blueprint of lost coherence, how might you, as an intelligent being, become more adept at identifying and engaging these negentropy conduction pathways in your own life and the systems around you?
A powerful question.
What are the implications for how you approach disorder or decay? Whether it's in your personal challenges like illness or confusion, systemic problems in society like polarization or environmental damage, or even our understanding of cosmic evolution. Could recognizing the specific shape of decay, its entropic topology, truly help us engineer new forms of coherence and regeneration in our world, in our communities, in ourselves?
If we're coherence engines, how do we consciously engineer that coherence?
It's a profound thought to sit with, isn't it? How do we become better engineers of recoherence?